Hi guys, and welcome to our Wednesday lesson, all to do with the work we've been doing on saving the planet. In terms of the whales and the whales writing a letter of complaint to humans to make them change the way they treat the oceans. So it says, on Monday we looked at an example letter of complaint from a gorilla to humans to try to persuade them to stop destroying the planet through deforestation. And we also gathered some facts and information relating to factors affecting whales, which may eventually cause them to become extinct. So that's where we gathered some of the information we need. On Tuesday, we drafted our introductory paragraph and first argument all about plastic pollution. So for that one, what we did was write the opening paragraph and then started writing about plastic pollution, how that affects the whales, and that's the main point really. That's the really big deal that we want to get across to humans. Today what we're going to write is our following arguments all about whaling, which is hunting, global warming and collisions with other ships and tankers. We're going to write some extra points to add to our persuasive letter to humans to try and get them to change their ways. Okay, and it says the icon says I can draft the main body of my persuasive letter. So we kind of started our main body yesterday when we started talking about plastic pollution, and now we're going to finish that part off. In terms of the model for writing, we've got our deforestation letter that we wrote, that we looked at, from Gerald the Mountain Gorilla. And what he did in his one is that he did the introduction there, and then he made his first argument, and we did about plastic pollution. And then this is where he had extra points. So one was about the carbon dioxide, one was about indigenous tribes. Those are those extra points, and that's what we'll be doing today. This final bit down here is the ending, and that's what we'll do on Thursday. Okay. So let's look at an example of where extra points have been added, and we'll look at Gerald the Mountain Gorilla's version. So it says, secondly, rainforests store enormous amounts of carbon dioxide. When the forest is cut down, carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. This causes global warming, which will eventually lead to catastrophic events. Is it really worth harming our planet? What will happen when the North and South Pole melt and flood? It doesn't bear thinking about. Finally, rainforests are home to many indigenous tribes who have lived there for many thousands of years. However, when the forest is cut down, they, the indigenous, lose their homes. They are left with nothing. Surely you must see that you are destroying people's lives. How would you like it if this were your home? Imagine your own street being bulldozed to rubble. Just imagine. Okay, so this is like the extra points that the person wants to make, or the animal is such in this. The animal wants to make to the human. And if we look at the structure of that, if I get a highlighter pen, so we've got a phrase such as secondly. So you have a phrase that's sort of a cohesive phrase, join it together, secondly, or in addition to this, as well as this. Penultimately, that is when you make your second to last point, and finally is obviously your last point. And it says first line clearly states the main point. So secondly, rainforests store enormous amounts of carbon dioxide. So that first line must tell the reader what it's all about. Let's take a blue. And then from there, it will add more details and facts and information as to what that's about. Now, this one here is not very long. So I would suggest when we do our ones should be at least 4 or 5 lines, a bit longer than this one. Those added points and details: when the forest is cut down, carbon dioxide is released. This causes global warming, which will eventually lead to catastrophic events, and you could expand on that. And then finally, what's a really useful tool is you doing some rhetorical questions. Okay, is it really worth harming our planet? What will happen when the North and South Pole melt and flood? So some rhetorical questions, and finally making it quite passionate, emotive and passionate. It doesn't bear thinking about! Exclamation mark. Okay, so that's adding that as extra points, and the same thing is repeated with another point. So we've got the same sort of structure. Finally, this time, so it's the final point they're going to make. So finally, rainforests are home to many indigenous tribes who have lived there for many thousands of years. However, when the forest is cut down, they, the indigenous, lose their homes. They are left with nothing. Surely you must see that you are destroying people's lives. How would you like it if this were your home? Imagine your own street being bulldozed to rubble. Just imagine. You can see how passionate and emotive that is at the end, along with the rhetorical questions and the added details in there. Okay, so that's the kind of thing we'll be doing today. To help you today, I put on the scaffold sheet, because we're going to talk about whaling, which is the practice of hunting whales. There's some information about that there that you can use. Global warming and what global warming is, and how that's going to affect the whales, and collisions with ships and tankers. All right. So that's all on the scaffold sheet that you can look at and use. What I'm looking forward today from you is at least 2 more substantial paragraphs. So I think at least 6 or 7 lines on each one. Okay, I want to see the openers being used, secondly, or in addition to this, or as well as this, or penultimately, or finally. Your first line should clearly state the main point, and then you need to add lots of details and information and facts. Try and use rhetorical questions. Try and make it emotive and passionate. In terms of stretching yourselves, the sort of things I'd like to see at a greater depth level, a good range of punctuation, using brackets maybe to speak directly to the reader. You can use other fancy bits of punctuation, semicolon, to join 2 clauses together, or because could be replaced by a colon. That's a way of using a colon. We've done that in the past. Dashes to add more detail. If you're really stretching yourself, you'll be editing, self-checking, fixing as you go along. If you're stretching yourself, you'll do all 3 paragraphs. You'll write about 1 for each of those. That's what I kind of expect. And perhaps not just using the facts and information I've given you, but any information you've researched yourself. That's what those of you working the highest level will do. You'll stretch yourself to push yourself to do the best. And obviously, working at a greater depth level, you'll maintain that quality from start to finish. Your 4th paragraph will be as good as your 1st paragraph. All right, so that's what we're looking for today in terms of our keys to success. Okay, and you can use that as your scaffold to support you. So to help you with that, I've got loaded up here my scaffold sheet, and it says task. Now that you've drafted your introduction and your opening paragraph about plastic pollution, you now need to draft the paragraphs that detail the extra problems facing whales, e.g. whaling, collision with ships, and global warming. Okay, there's an example that we looked at. There's the keys to success, and at the bottom of your scaffold sheet is all of the facts and information that we know about these 3 different things, and this is what's going to help me as I write my one. So at this point, you need to choose what you're going to write your next point about, and you don't just, because it says problem number 2, whaling, you don't have to do whaling next. You could do about global warming, or you could do about collisions with ships and tankers. You can do it in any order you want. Okay, I'm going to go for whaling. All right, so looking at the example 1 where it says secondly, rainforests store enormous amounts of carbon dioxide. So secondly, comma, as well as the points made above. As well as the points made above. So this is referring to above. I've talked about plastic pollution, but now I'm going to talk about something else. Secondly, as well as the points made above, are you aware? So I'm going to actually ask the reader here, are you aware of the term, comma, whaling? So I'm also asking the reader to think about it here. So that's my opening line. Secondly, as well as the points made above, are you aware of the term whaling? Well, comma. I'm going to look back at my fact sheet just to make sure I'm saying the right thing. What is whaling? Well, it's the practice of hunting whales, and it's done to get meat and oil called blubber. Some communities also known to have hunted whales for food. Well, whaling is quite simply known as the hunting of whales. Full stop. Yes, that's right. Hunting. Hunting poor, defenseless whales. Can you believe it? So I'm making it very passionate. I'm using rhetorical questions. I'm just going to read that back. Secondly, as well as the points made above, are you aware of the term whaling? Well, whaling is quite simply known as the hunting of whales. Yes, that's right. Hunting. Hunting poor, defenseless whales. Can you believe it? Can you believe anyone, I was going to say people, but I think anyone sounds better. Anyone could be so cruel. Okay, and then I'm going to add, so what I've done here is I've kind of introduced the topic. I've used one of the sentence open. I've stated my first line. I've begun to add details, but I need to add more details to it now. Can you believe anyone could be so cruel? So I'm going to look back at my fact sheet. So it's banned in most countries. People still do it. It's been happening since 3000 BC. Oh my gosh, in 1930s, more than 50,000 whales were killed each year. So I've got lots of facts here that I can use to talk about. And I need to explain to humans why it's done. Can you believe anyone could be so cruel? Believe it or not, that's a good sentence opener. Believe it or not, comma. We are hunted, as whales that is. So use the brackets to speak to the reader. Believe it or not, we are hunted for our let's check what it is that they're hunted for meat and oil called blubber. We are hunted for our meat and oil known as blubber. That's right. Humans seem to think that we are worth no more than I want to say something about being like food on a plate. That's right. Humans seem to think that we are worth no more than simply a plate of food. Or we are no more, or that's not quite make sense when you read about it. That's right. Humans seem to think we are worth no more worth less than a plate of food. Semicolon, because I'm not using one of those yet. They use us, they kill us, and use us for their own greed and satisfaction. Do we really deserve such a sad demise? Now, I might have to check back. If I was doing this, I might check back at my first paragraph to just see I haven't repeated any of the same phrases or any of the same rhetorical questions. But let's read that all the way through. So it says, secondly, as well as the point made above, are you aware of the term whaling? Well, whaling is quite simply known as the hunting of whales. Yes, that's right. Hunting poor defenseless whales. Can you believe it? Can you believe anyone could be so cruel? Believe it or not, we are hunted, us whales that is, for our meat and oil known as blubber. That's right. Humans just seem to think we are worth less than a plate of food. They kill us and use us for their own greed and satisfaction. Do we really deserve such a sad demise? What did we ever do to deserve such a sad fate? Now, I've kind of made a few points, but I want to add to it more because I think what humans need to understand is actually that whaling is illegal and still takes place. And I think this fact here, that in the 1930s, more than 50,000 whales were killed each year. Here is a very simple yet shocking fact for you. I'm going to use a comma here, so I'm sort of introducing the point and then I'll explain it in the next clause. Here's a very simple yet shocking fact for you. In the 1930s, and I'm not going to directly copy the phrase, I'm going to write it in my own words. In the 1930s, year on year, what does it say, 50,000 whales? Year on year, it is reported that more than 50,000 whales were hunted and killed each year. Or I've used year too many times. In the 1930s, year on year, it's reported that more than 50,000 whales were hunted and killed. 50,000. That's, you heard me correctly, 50,000. I'm going to put it in words. How dare we be treated in such an inhumane manner? Actually, that's an exclamation. I'm not asking a question, I'm making a point here. How dare we be treated in such an inhumane manner? Now, there are many of you, humans, that is, that I know will be disgusted by these, I was going to say extraordinary, but I'm going to use the thesaurus, see if I can find a better word. By these, I like that one, astonishing statistics. I'm not going to say facts, I'm going to say statistics. Now, there are many of you, humans that is, that I know will be disgusted by these astonishing statistics. And, in fact, whaling has since been made illegal. Has it stopped? Has making it... actually, I'm going to add to that. Now, there are many of you, humans that is, that I know will be disgusted by these astonishing facts. And in fact, whaling has since been made illegal, which I am sure you agree is the right and fair thing to do. However, whaling still happens all around the world illegally. To this day, we continue to be hunted by greedy humans, greedy and selfish humans. Now, I'm kind of getting to my final point now, and I'm going to finish with some sort of rhetorical question, reader. How does that make you feel? How does it feel to be associated with such an evil race of people? No, with such an evil crime. I hope you are as shocked as we are that this inhumane, that means like really bad act, this inhumane act continues to take place to this very day. I hope you are shocked as we are that this inhumane act, and I put in brackets to make clear, whaling - the hunting of whales, continues to take place to this very day. Okay, so I've made my point here. I'm going to read it all the way back through. Secondly, as well as the points made above, are you aware of the term whaling? Well, whaling is quite simply known as the hunting of whales. Yes, that's right, hunting. Hunting poor defenceless whales. Can you believe it? Can you believe anyone could be so cruel? Believe it or not, we are hunted, as whales that is, for our meat and oil known as blubber. That's right, humans seem to think that we are worth less than a plate of food. They kill us and use us for their own greed and satisfaction. Do we really deserve such a sad demise? What did we ever do to deserve such a sad fate? Well, I'm going to change that because I've used it twice. It's a synonym. Wretched, that's a good word. Wretched fate. Here's a very simple yet shocking fact for you. In the 1930s, year on year, it is reported that more than 50,000 whales were hunted and killed. 50,000. You heard me correctly. 50,000. How dare we be treated in such an inhumane manner? Now, there are many of you, humans that is, that I know will be disgusted at these astonishing facts, and in fact, whaling has since been made illegal, which I'm sure you agree is the right and fair thing to do. However, whaling still happens all around the world illegally. To this day, we continue to be hunted by greedy and selfish humans. How does that make you feel? How does it feel to be associated with such an evil crime? I hope you're as shocked as we are that this inhumane act, whaling, the hunting of whales, continues to take place to this very day. And that's my argument about whales. So, looking at the key to success, I've added more details and information and facts. I used rhetorical questions, and it was emotive and passionate. I also made use of all those different pieces of punctuation. I was fixing, self-checking as I went along, and I maintained that high quality from start to finish. I didn't actually include any other extra facts and information that I researched myself, but that's something you could do. I expect to see today at least 2 more paragraphs. So that's one, for example, about whaling, but you can also talk about global warming, which is written about there, and collisions with ships and tankers. So you could do 3 more, but as a minimum of 2. So say I was going to do global warming next, I would go, furthermore, in addition to the points I have made about plastic pollution and whaling, I also want to draw your attention to global warming. Full stop. So then I begin to make my next points. I might look at some of the information. What is global warming? Well, as we know, it's the increase of the overall Earth's temperature by things like carbon dioxide and other pollutants, things like lots of cars giving off lots of fumes, and it's causing the ice caps to melt. And it talks about in here that krill, which is a type of fish that the whales eat, once the ice caps melt, the krill can't survive. So the whales are basically wiped out because they've got nothing to eat. Okay, so that's what I'd start to go into. Something like this. So global warming dash, and you could add in this parenthesis, explain what it is, which is the increase in the global in the Earth's temperature, due to the release of fumes such as carbon dioxide and other gases, will have or is having catastrophic it's causing catastrophic effects. Full stop. Okay. And then I begin to talk about the ice caps melting and the krill dying out, and the krill is what we eat. It have the same sort of structure to this. And then finally, if you want to do the stretch, you'd make your third and final point, which will be about collisions with ships and tankers. I think as a minimum, I think I've done there. It says 269 words. I think you're looking at about, guys, I said before about 600. I think you need 10 to 11 lines per paragraph. If you're going to have lots of detail and hit all those keys to success, you have 10 to 11 lines per paragraph. And I think at least 2 paragraphs, but hopefully if you want to aim for all 3 really, because I think you're all capable of that. Okay, when you're done, check it all back. By the end of today, you should have written your introduction from yesterday and your paragraph about plastic pollution, and then you'll have made at least 2 more points. For example, there's my one all about whaling, and at least 1 more, if not 2 more points. Tomorrow we're going to finish drafting it all out to publish probably on Monday next week. Okay, hope that makes sense. Make sure you check the scaffold sheets as you're writing and use all of these bits of information that we've already gathered. And by the end, you should write a really, really good piece of writing. Okay, hope that all makes sense. Have lots of fun with it. Make sure it's quite passionate. Make sure you sound like an angry whale. Make sure you got to put yourself in the shoes of a whale. All right, I know whales don't wear shoes, but imagine they did. You're in the shoes of a whale trying to convince humans to change their ways. The way we are treating them, it's not fair. All right, see you later. Bye.